Hi, this is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next I've got some awesome Marvel and DC books, as well as some recommendations for Doctor Doom and Submariner, so stay tuned. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I'm gonna get right into this first package here, and like I said, I've got a couple, I think some pretty cool books, as well as some recommendations for alternatives and just kind of some other books to pick up right now, because Submariner and Doctor Doom are real hot, and so some of those books are getting a little expensive, so I think there are some good alternatives. So, alright, we'll get into this. Okay, so this first book is a Doctor Doom book, and this is Fantastic Four Annual Number 2. And this is the first appearance of Werner Von Doom, who is Doctor Doom's father. It's also a origin of Doctor Doom, so it's a good book to pick up for that. So this is actually one of the books that I would recommend picking up as one of those kind of spec alternatives. I think this is a great book to pick up right now. It is still very affordable. This is a book that I picked up for 120 bucks. This is a pretty low grade, about a 1.5 or a 2. That's about what I think it should be going for right about now, and maybe a little more. Okay, so I just wanted to make a little extra on this, just kind of as a PSA for people that are buying raw books, just for things to always check for. So, after this book arrived, I did I always do a page count. First thing I check for resto, like see if I see any obvious color touch, that kind of thing. Then I always do a page count, and this one is missing 8 sheets, so 16 pages. So yeah, there are. I've contacted the seller. But just something, whenever you're buying raw books, do page counts. That should be one of the main things you do right away. Make sure it's all there. Make sure there's no cutouts, anything like that. As long as it was, sold, as there not being any cutouts or it's being complete, that kind of thing. So, just an FYI, make sure you check that stuff. And, back to the video. But, because Fantastic Four number 5, which is his first appearance, and I've got a copy of that. So this is his first appearance. My copy is obviously missing a very large piece of the cover, but it is what it is. I'm happy to have a copy of this book. It was kind of funny when when I bought it, I was telling myself, I'm like, oh, I'll get this one now, I'll upgrade it later. But now this book has gone absolutely nuts, and a 0.5 recently sold for $3,150. 9.4 sold on that Heritage auction that I had in my market video before for $138,000, and a mid-grade, a 5.5, recently sold for a little over $13,000. So, they're really expensive, and I don't really see myself likely upgrading, this copy. It presents well, other than the giant piece making the front. Everything else is relatively clean, but still happy to have that book. But I think this is a great alternative to it. It's a very early appearance of Doctor Doom. It is his origin, and you get another first appearance in it with Werner Von Doom. Now, there are some other books as well, though, that I would recommend picking up in addition to just these two. This is one that I think is a great book to pick up, and it's Marvel Superheroes number 20. And this is one of the best Doctor Doom covers that's out there. This cover is incredible. It's just him. It's, the focus is entirely on him on the cover. He's got a cool pose, and this is a nice copy. This is probably something like a 7.0, somewhere in that range. But these have gotten a lot more expensive recently. 6.5 recently sold for $525, but you can still get low grades, you know, around the 1 to 2 range for maybe 100 to 150. So it is still a book that you can get into. It does have the first appearance of Valeria, who is Doctor Doom's kind of like love interest early on in his life, and plays an important role in some of the later stories with him. So you do get a first appearance with that book. You also get, you know, like I said, a really, you know, cool cover. And so I do recommend, you know, kind of looking out for this one. You can definitely find these on eBay pretty regularly. They come up quite a bit. You can find this one as well. I have actually a couple copies of it. So unfortunately both of mine are low grade. This one is maybe a little better. This one's maybe something like a 2.5 or a 3. But yeah, I think those are great books to pick up. The other one that you could go for is, you know, I was recently talking about second appearances. You know, second appearances are, you know, the first appearances are getting really expensive, and so as they do, people are moving off to, you know, things like second appearances or origins. And this is the second appearance of Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four number 6, and it's also the second appearance of Submariner, and they're both on the cover. So, you know, it's a pretty cool cover. It's also the first Marvel supervillain team-up. So there's a lot going on for this book. It has actually gotten quite a bit more expensive recently. It's, you know, low grades you can maybe find around $500 or $600 in the 0.5 to 1 range, but it does get quite a bit more expensive. It gets over $1,000 very quickly, you know, around a 2. But this is a, you know, it's a cool book, a cool cover. You know, if you can get a copy of this, I would definitely go for it. But that brings up kind of the other books that I wanted to talk about for Submariner, because, you know, that's second appearance of Submariner. His first appearance is Fantastic Four number 4, and this is also a very low grade, you know, something like a 0.5 or a 1. It has some extra staples in it. I think the cover, if I remember, is completely split, reattached with tape, all that. So it's probably a 0.5, but it presents really well, which is kind of the big plus for it. But with this book, a 0.5 recently sold for $990, and a 6.5 for $6,600. So it's getting really pricey because people are, again, speculating that we're going to eventually start seeing some of these, you know, major characters show up. But the good thing with Submariner is there are some great alternatives. One of them being, and it's a book I don't have, but I'm always on the lookout for, and I hope to get one, is Fantastic Four Annual number 1, which I'll look up here. That's one of the reasons also that I wanted to talk about that, was that, you know, this is Annual number 2. Annual number 1 is the Submariner origin. It's also the first, it has a couple first appearances in it, the first appearance of Lady Dorma and the first appearance of Warlord Krang, who are both Atlanteans. So they aren't big characters really or anything. They do play a part in some of the stories, but that is, I mean, it's also the first Fantastic Four Annual. So I think that's a good book to try to pick up if you can get it. It's not too expensive right now. A 3.0 recently sold for about $250. So in those kind of lower grades, you can get it for around $100 per grade point, give or take. So I'd say that's a book that's worth looking for. Like I mentioned, Fantastic Four number 4 is very expensive, but there are other, you know, again, other good alternatives for Submariner. Another great one is this book. And so this is Submariner number 1. This is the retelling of his origin. This is a very low-grade copy, you know, something like a, I don't know, a 1 or a 2. Maybe, I mean, yeah, probably like a 2. There's a ton of staining on it, that kind of thing. You know, this is obviously a very nice copy. This is I mean, I love this book. It's a cool, it's a really nice cover. I really like the cover. You've got this awesome blue color on it that just looks really sharp when it's in high grade. Because when you start to get some like tanning and that kind of thing on this book, this blue gets more of a green tinge to it, and so the ones that are the higher grade, you know, they have a nice blue on it, and, you know, it looks real sharp with the red, and so again, just, you know, him right on the cover, it's great. So this is a book though that is still very affordable in lower grades, you know, around a 3 to a 5 even, you can get for about $200 to $300, and I mean, I picked up this one I mean, it was a few months ago now, but I think I paid $50. So you can find them. You know, you can find them pretty affordably for now. I don't expect that to last very long. One big reason that I say that is that Iron Man #1, that book has gotten really expensive. It used to be very affordable for a long time, and then everybody started going after those big Silver Age keys like Tales of Suspense 39, his first appearance. And so as those books got really expensive, people have started moving off to alternates like Iron Man #1. And so Iron Man #1 got really expensive. You're seeing 5.0s, 6.0s selling for $800 to $1,000 now. And whereas, like I said, Submariner #1 in that 5.0 range is still going around $300. So I think that there's the likelihood that you're going to see a lot of upward movement in that book that hasn't happened yet. And so that would be one to start looking for. All right, so those were the books I wanted to talk about with Dr. Doom and Submariner. Now I've got one more box here though, so I'm gonna open this one and we'll talk about this book. Alright, now this is actually a book that I have talked about very recently, I think also on one of the market videos, kind of about some high sales, that kind of thing. And I didn't honestly think I was going to be able to get another copy of it because it's gotten so expensive and everybody is, you know, asking a lot for them. And so, but got it on a claim sale recently, very happy to see it there, it was a great price. And this is Hawkman #4. And this is the first appearance of Zatanna, and I mean, ever since that announcement that they're going to be doing a movie and they've got a big name director tied to it, this book has exploded. I mean, a 5.5 recently sold for $1,500. You know, that was a book that was, you know, maybe like a $400, $500 book before. So these guys have gotten real pricey. You know, 3.5, it's not a super high grade, but I think I've mentioned before, like, I can't seem to get a high grade copy of this book. The highest I think I've had is maybe a 3.5. I might have had a 4. This one has kind of some interesting flaws on it. It's got like this little like hole punch thing on the back, but you know, it's got some tape on the spine as well, right down here. But it doesn't bother me, and it also has, you know, these stamps, but I have no problem with stamps. I think, you know, I always like stamps. I think they're kind of cool. Okay, so just something else I wanted to cut in with this because I saw this after the fact and I thought this was so funny. So this is with the Hawkman book, and I don't know if you can read that down there, but the stamp that is on this book says, "Headquarters of the Office for the Society of the Preservation of Comic Books." Like, why would they put that stamp on the book? I feel like that is exactly what they wouldn't do. But I think that makes this so great. I think that is so funny. That is the funniest stamp I could ever think to put on one of these books, is somebody who is from the Society of Preserving Comics is damaging the comic with their own stamp. But all right, I just thought that was really funny and wanted to mention that. But happy to get this book regardless. And you know, I did have I had one bad experience with a copy of this book. It was around Christmas and I was bidding for a raw copy, and the raw copy was probably about a 5.5, give or take, something like that. And I won that auction, and the seller canceled the sale with some garbage excuse. And so that is the worst. If you do that on eBay, you are a terrible person. You know, it's if you're putting a book up for auction, you are accepting that is the price the book is going to sell for. Don't cancel it if you're not happy with what it sold for. So that was very frustrating, especially now with what these books are doing. But yeah, that was going to be my first kind of like nice mid-grade copy of that book, and yeah, unfortunately, I was never able to get it. So, so I was very upset about that. Don't do that if you're if you're a seller on eBay. That is not the thing to do. It is terrible sales practice. So, if you got a problem with a sales price, put your books up at fixed price. Don't auction. But going back to this, there are some alternatives for this I have talked about in the past. There's DC Superstars number 11, which I'll plug a picture up here. That's a great solo cover of Zatanna. I think it's an awesome book to pick up. It is Bronze Age, so it is still a very affordable book. Another one, though, is Atom number 19, and I'll plug a picture there. I do not have a copy of that book. It is a pretty uncommon book. I think I checked and it was something like 73 copies on the census. So it's not a common book. There's one on eBay that I saw right now. It's her second appearance. It's also her first cover appearance. So that would be one. I've mentioned second appearances. That would be one to go for with Hawkman number 4 getting so expensive. It's one of those things where it's kind of random, the titles that these characters sometimes appear in. You've got Hawkman title, then an Atom title, and then this kind of DC Superstars. But that's the way it is with some of these characters, and they kind of move around into different titles. But yeah, those are the books I wanted to talk about. The recommendations I had for some alternatives for Submariner and Doctor Doom and Zatanna. If you thought this video was useful, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this, and I will see you in the next video.